Hello, I'm Chris, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL. Thank you for joining me. I recently did a video on the 10 best men's fragrances of all time, but what if I told you you could have all 10 of them for less than the cost of one original bottle? It's true. Let's dive in. The video I did was the 10 best of all time as voted for by Fragrantica readers. Not really the best of all time, more like the best of the last 5 years, but it still made for an interesting list of excellent fragrances. If you followed my channel for a while, firstly, thank you, but you'll know that I'm a big fan of Perfume Parlour fragrances, so I thought it would be fun to compare all the Perfume Parlour versions of these 10 best fragrances of all time. And I'm going to do these in the order of which I think are the best Perfume Parlour versions. Just in case you don't know, Perfume Parlour are a British clone house that ship worldwide. I've been using them for years before I even started this channel. In fact, I probably wouldn't have started this channel if Perfume Parlour hadn't got me hooked on fragrances. They're the cheapest around. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check any of these out. You'll see in this video that I'm using the 13mm EDP sprayers from Perfume Parlour. They do all different sizes and they do X-straight versions. I love these 13mm sprayers because I buy a lot of them and I think it's enough juice to really give the fragrances a good wearing and get a good sense of whether you like it or not. These 13mm sprayers cost typically around £8, so you could get all 10 fragrances from this video for £80. A full 100ml retail bottle of Sauvage Elixir costs around about £160, so you can get all 10 of these for less than half of one bottle of Sauvage Elixir. The first one I'm going to talk about is Perfume Parlour's version of Dior On Parfum, which actually came number 7 in the list of the best of all time. Dior On Parfum is an incredible fragrance. I love the brand of Dior. I think all their fragrances are fantastic. They never drop the ball. You've got that sexy powdery iris, but unlike others in the Dior line, it's got so much depth. There's leather in here. I get a little bit of booziness, although there are no boozy notes listed. It is a very powerful, very strong, long-lasting, impactful, statement-making, head-turning fragrance. Incredible stuff. So how does Perfume Parlour's version compare? Not quite as well. This is the one on the list, being at number 10, that I think is least like the original. Perfume Parlour's version is called Power Intense. The code that you can put on when you're searching for this on the website is 1217. You can also just put Dior On Parfum or Power Intense. Either way, they'll get you to this fragrance. So why is this only number 10 on the list? To me, it doesn't quite have the power and the intensity of Dior On Parfum, and that is one of the best characteristics of that fragrance. It's still a nice fragrance. It still smells relatively like Dior On Parfum. In the air, I think I would pick it out that it is an interpretation of Dior On Parfum. I feel though that it is just a slightly faded, thinner version. It's a bit of a facsimile of Dior On Parfum, which gets some of the way there, but not quite all of the way there. We don't quite get the depth and the strength and the impact of the original. It's not quite as natural smelling. It doesn't last as long. I would say the performance on this is average performance, so not terrible, not bad, still okay, still very usable. Enjoyable fragrance in its own right, just not the closest of Perfume Parlour's version. So out of 10, I'm going to give Power Intense a 6. At number 9, we're sticking with Dior, and I don't know if this means that Perfume Parlour don't quite get the Diors as close, but the fragrance I'm talking about for this one is Dior On Intense, and this actually came number 1 on the best of all time list, but only number 9 on mine. Let's just quickly talk about original Dior On Intense, another masterpiece. I actually favour it just slightly over Dior On Parfum because it's a little more versatile. We still get that very sexy, attention-grabbing, powdery iris. There's a little bit of chocolatey cacao in there as well. Insane fragrance, fantastic performance, great longevity. Could well be my favourite designer fragrance of all time. Perfume Parlour's version is called French Power, and the code on this one is 0509. This one gets a little closer to Dior On Intense than Power Intense got to Dior On Parfum. This is getting confusing, all this power and intensity and Frenchness. Definitely recognisable as the Dior On Intense DNA, but there is a little difference, and that is to do with the intensity. And for a fragrance that is called Dior On Intense, that's a little bit of an issue. I would really have loved the intensity of French Power to match the original version, but it doesn't quite get there. Not a weak fragrance though, it will give you a good approximation of Dior On Intense. I would say the performance overall is average, again, not bad, but not as good as the original. Overall, I'm going to give French Power a 7 out of 10. The The fragrance that was voted 10th best men's fragrance of all time on the Fragrantica list is Giorgio Armani's Acqua Profumo. One of my absolute favourite summer fragrances, particularly enjoy this one on a summer's evening. The citrus, the sea air, the herbs and the incense work incredibly well. Perfume Parlour's version is called Sweet Water. The code on this one is 1262. So the problem with the Perfume Parlour fragrances that don't get quite as close to the originals is that they are usually a slightly thinner, slightly more faded version of the original. Sort of a slightly faded copy. For me, that's the case with Sweet Water because whilst it is, again, recognizable as the Acqua Profumo DNA, it is just a slightly thinner version. It's not quite as strong. Still a hugely enjoyable fragrance if you take away the comparison to the original, but it isn't quite as natural smelling, not quite as strong. The performance isn't as good. Again, I would say this is fairly average performance. Overall, I'm going to give Sweet Water a 7 out of 10. This is the fragrance that was voted as second best men's fragrance of all time. I'm talking about Bleu de Chanel EDP. Bleu is amazing, it's fresh, it's fruity, it's clean, you just cannot go wrong. So easy to wear, the likability combined with Chanel's quality make it so popular. Unfortunately for us, Perfume Parlour do not copy any Chanel fragrances. They 100% do not clone Chanel fragrances. I just want to make that perfectly clear. However, they do own their own original creation, which has absolutely no connection at all with Bleu de Chanel. It just is in a similar ballpark, or shall we say, swims in the same ocean. It's called Navy Intense, and the code is 0061. It's pretty similar. I was wearing this fragrance and I felt like I was wearing Bleu de Chanel. It was when I tried it side by side though with the Chanel that you really notice the difference between Perfume Parlour's version and the Chanel quality. If you want a Chanel fragrance with Chanel's quality, you've got to go and buy from Chanel. It's as simple as that. Navy Intense is going to give you a similar experience to wearing Bleu de Chanel. It's also got good performance. This one had great longevity for me. Overall, I'm going to give Navy Intense a 7 out of 10 compared to no other fragrance, just a 7 out of 10 on its own merit. Next up is the fragrance that came number 9 on the list of best of all time fragrances, and this is probably the biggest selling niche fragrance of all time, Aventus. Aventus is a magnificent, fruity, woody fragrance, a game changer in the fragrance industry. Perfume Parlour have many versions of the many different versions of Aventus, but the one that I keep coming back to, which I consistently enjoy, is Avalanche Fruity, and the code on this one is 1979. I keep coming back to this version of Avalanche because to me it just seems like a really good balance of all the good things about Aventus. It's not too woody, and despite the name, it's not too fruity. I just think it smells really nice. I've got a friend who years ago I recommended this fragrance to. He wanted something cheap, he didn't want to pay full retail. I said, you've got to try this one out. And over the years, he has received so many compliments on this fragrance. Every time I see him, he's always telling me about someone else who's mentioned that they love what he's wearing and they've asked him what it is. He's actually a TV cameraman, and when he's in the studios or when he's at these events filming, there are people that are asking him what he's wearing because they want to either buy it for themselves or buy it for their partners. It is loved by many. At the cost that these are, I would say it's probably worth exploring all the versions of Avalanche that Perfume Parlour offer. See which one you like best, see which one is closest to the version of original Aventus that you like the best, or even if you've not smelled original Aventus, just try them out. Don't buy much, just get these smaller bottles, try them out, see which one resonates with you the best. Avalanche Fruity. It's excellent, performance is very good, smells very close. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Number 3 on the list of best men's fragrances of all time was the modern classic Terre de Mes. It's got citrus and woods, it's fresh and clean, but lots of depth. Amazing scent. Of all the funny, sometimes cheeky Perfume Parlour names, I think this one is the one that made me chuckle the most because it's called Torn. So Torn is their version of Terre de Mes. If you want to let rip on Torn, the code is 1281. Overall, I'd say Torn gets about 80% of the way there to Terre de Mes. It starts off very similar, doesn't quite match the lasting power of the original, but it's still pretty decent performance. Overall, I'm going to give Torn an 8 out of 10. Number 5 on the list of best of all time was Sauvage Elixir. Dior shook the industry with Sauvage Elixir. All of a sudden, every brand started pumping out an elixir. I think the reason Sauvage Elixir has done so well is because a lot of people who are quite into fragrances didn't want to just keep buying more versions of Sauvage that smelled like that Sauvage DNA, because it was just everywhere. It's just associated with everyone wearing it, a very common fragrance, and perhaps when you wear a fragrance or when you're into fragrances, you want to stand out a little bit more. Well, Sauvage Elixir did that. It enabled people who enjoy Sauvage but don't want to wear it because everyone's wearing it to have something that has the Sauvage DNA in the background there, but it is a more assured, more impactful, more statement-making scent. The Perfume Parlour version is called Sensible Elixir. The code on it is 1481. This is really good. I was surprised at how close to Sauvage Elixir this is. I feel the original is quite a complex fragrance. I think there's a lot going on. Perfume Parlour have managed to recreate that very closely, and not just in terms of the smell, but in terms of the power and the strength. Sauvage Elixir is a very strong fragrance. It's a beast mode fragrance, and somehow Perfume Parlour have managed to recreate that. If I was going to pick a little bit of a difference, I'd say it's perhaps a little more rounded, not quite as pointed and spiky as the original Sauvage Elixir, but that may suit some people. But generally, Perfume Parlour, I think, did an excellent job with this one. Great performance, great smell. I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Voted as the number 8th greatest men's fragrance of all time is the banger that is Spicebomb Extreme. One of my favourite designer fragrances of all time, creamy vanilla, tobacco, and a tantalising explosion of spices. Love it for winter. Perfume Parlour's version is called Intense Aroma Exploding, and the code on this one is 1484. Interesting one, this. Smells very similar, but there is a little difference, and that's not a negative difference. In fact, it's a very positive difference. It ups the ante in terms of the smoky woods to the point where it's smokier and woodier and deeper than the original Spicebomb Extreme. That could be due to the fact that this one is around about 3 years old. I think I bought this one in 2020, and I'm pretty sure that the juice wasn't this colour when I bought it. It has been in a dark drawer for all that time. It's not been exposed to daylight at all, but we've got sort of a slightly purple tinge to the juice here. I mean, it smells great. I'd say that this is somewhere between the original Spicebomb Extreme and Maison Margiela's By the Fireplace, with that sweet smoky woods and chestnut. So I can't guarantee you're going to get exactly the same as that if you buy it brand new, because maybe over time mine's changed a little bit for the better, I would say. Really love this one. Excellent job from Perfume Parlour. I'm giving it a 9. Voted as the 6th best men's fragrance of all time from Jean-Paul Gaultier is Le Mal Le Parfum. Le Mal Le Parfum is a vanilla-infused modern take on the original. Some sexy iris in there too. Huge compliment getter. Perfume Parlour's version is called Powerful Nobleman, and the code is 1806. This is going to be really quick because, to me, they nailed it. I couldn't find any differences on my skin testing side by side between this one and the original Le Mal Le Parfum. Good job, Perfume Parlour, in both smell and performance. I just had to give this one a 10. My number 1 Perfume Parlour is the fragrance that was voted for as the 4th best men's fragrance of all time by readers of the Fragrantica website. It's Layton from Parfums de Marly. One of the most popular from Parfums de Marly due to its mass appeal and extremely likeable, addictive smell. Layton is very versatile if you want to pull compliments, or even if you just want to pull. It is a spicy, masculine compliment getter. Also, a spicy, masculine compliment getter with equally as good performance, and that's saying something because this is strong stuff. This lasts. Perfume Parlour's version is called Herb Garden. The code on this one is 1598. My only problem with this one is it's not the catchiest or sexiest of names. I feel like a fragrance that smells this sexy and is going to get that many compliments should be called something a little more sexed up than Herb Garden. Can you imagine if someone comes up to you in a bar and says, "Oh, that fragrance is amazing. Can you tell me what it is? What's the name of it?" And you're like, "Yeah, it's Herb Garden. Anyway, the name is not important. Herb Garden is a superb copy of Parfums de Marly's Layton in terms of smell, in terms of performance. Price on this, when you smell the quality of the juice in this bottle, is insane. I'm really impressed with what they managed to do with this, and I think you've probably guessed it, it's number one. I'm gonna have to give this one a 10 out of 10. Really good stuff. There are the scores for the cheaper Perfume Parlour alternatives. My affiliate link to the site is in the video description if you're interested in any of these. If you want some great smelling fragrances that cost a lot less, then check out the link and you'll get on the site, you'll be like a kid in a sweet shop. Let me know what other Perfume Parlour videos you would like to see from me. If you like this video, you know what to do. Give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do all that, I will see you right back here for the next video. Thanks for watching.